So it's not really any secret. Motorcycles usually get excellent gas mileage. Like for instance, my 2008 Honda Shadow Aero 750, she should do about 50 mpgs or better. At least she's supposed to. She's supposed to be doing that. Might have done two modifications that may have affected the fuel economy, but she still gets like 45 plus. Now there's several things that can affect your fuel economy. One, depending on how you ride. If you're just taking it nice and easy, kind of like I'm doing here, you're going to optimize your fuel economy. Now if you ride like an a-hole, stuff like this all the time, yeah, it's probably going to go down. And of course the modifications you make to your bike are going to affect it as well. For instance, I got the aftermarket intake, been rejetted with a larger main jet, which if any of you are curious as to whether it made an impact on performance or not, I don't really know. Maybe? And don't get me wrong, I'm not unrealistic. Like, oh, I wasn't expecting the world. It's going to be a race bike now. Yes, pulling on freaking Hayabusas. Haha, take that. Because even if this did add, like, say, 5%, that's still 5% of, like, 45 horsepower. So, I mean, I didn't really expect anything. And it's not just engine mods, though, either. Like, if you're carrying around giant saddlebags with half your toolbox everywhere, that's more weight the bike's gotta move. If you're a bigger person, that's more weight the bike's gotta move. I'd also be curious of the difference, like a batwing fairing or like a windshield would, how that would affect your mileage. Because if it's deflecting it around you, but it's also like a wall the air has to push through, or the bike has to push through the air, I don't know. Unfortunately, this bike with the aftermarket triples, I can't actually do any testing on that, unfortunately. Even before I redid the whole front end of this thing, I still didn't really ride with the windshield all that much, just because I don't know, I didn't really care for it. Honestly, I'd rather feel as much wind as I can. And I don't do a lot of highway anyway, so it really kind of doesn't matter. At least not on the Shadow. So every bike is different, every rider's different. I can only speak from my personal experience. So the numbers I get might not be what you guys get. And honestly, the fuel-injected models, I'm really curious if the newer fuel-injected Shadows, I say newer, they've been out for like 14 years of fuel injection. But newer compared to like my 2008. Like, I know for sure there's still 50 plus miles to the gallon, which of course in kilometers per liter is a different number. But I'd be curious, like, how different? Like, the stock fuel injection system, does that put like the same amount of fuel as the previous factory tuned carburetors? I mean, engine displacement's the same, seems like it would, right? Power numbers I think are about the same. I don't know. But we're at 126 miles, and usually 120 I start looking hard for a gas station. So we're going to find one, we're going to fuel up and see exactly what kind of mileage we're getting on this thing. I am hoping for at least 45. 120 is also kind of about where I reach over and I switch to reserve. But I did that before we left today because I knew I'd be dipping in there a little bit. You fuel injected guys, you should have, that's neat, you should have a little light that pops up and says, hey, dummy, go get some fuel. Alright, so we're just at like 128. So we're going to gas this up and see what math we can do and numbers we come up with. Alright, so we did 127.8 miles. We're going to divide that by the number of gallons, which is 2.397. That is going to give us 53 miles to the gallon, which is not what I expected. The spike intake, the aftermarket exhaust, it's kind of weird. Maybe I've been behaving myself, who knows. Before we take off, we're going to flip the fuel back to on, reset our trip, and we're good to roll. Honestly, 53 miles to the gallon is about 6 more than I expected. I know I said 45, so I guess it's 8 more than I was expecting. And the thing I can probably attribute that to the most is because it's cooler out. Because when I did all the work in this carburetor, it was actually, it was like late winter, early spring. So it was probably 60 Fahrenheit-ish, mostly outside. It's like 73 out here now, which Celsius, it escapes me, guys. I'm sorry. I need a little cheat sheet or something. Which I guess that's one of the downsides of the carbureted bike versus fuel-injected. Fuel-injected, the computer would be down there doing all kinds of math, depending on what kind of ambient temperature is being sucked into the intake. It's going to freaking adjust the fuel appropriately. Carburetor, you kind of got to get it close everywhere. It's got to kind of be like an all-encompassing kind of thing. You're stuck with like one jet unless you want to pull over and change it out all the time. Some guys might do that. I don't know. And really, on the single carb aero, changing the carburetor jet, the main and the pilot, really isn't that difficult. I mean, you don't even have to take the carburetor off the bike. And if you guys don't believe me, well, I did it in this video here. As always, y'all be good. See ya.